Greetings and salutations. Thanks for clicking on the video. This one should be fun for you guys who like to tinker. I'm going to show you today how to install any version of Ubuntu you like using a one disk image. In other words, if you want to install Xubuntu, you will not have to go to Xubuntu's site and download their disk image. And if you want to do Ubuntu GNOME, you don't have to do it from there either. In today's example, we'll be doing Xubuntu. This is also an alternative way to install Ubuntu and get it onto a machine that doesn't have a DVD drive, and you cannot boot off of a USB. So if you're trying to get, let's say, Ubuntu, and you want to put it on this old machine and it will only boot from a CD, then this is how you could do it. So the first thing you want to do is come to Ubuntu's page, and I will show you method 1, and then I'm going to show you method 2. So method 1 is you would come to desktop. We're going to go ahead and let that load up. And then ordinarily what you would do, of course, is download a 64 or 32-bit version from here. But we're not going to do that today because we want something a little bit different. And we'll click on Alternative Downloads and scroll down the page, and I've made the text really big so it's easy to see. And the first thing that we're going to look at doing is a network installer. So here it gives you the option for the base systems that are available, and let's say that we wanted to do 1504. So we want the latest version, and we'll scroll down here, and the first thing we'll do is select an architecture. So if you want a 64-bit version of Ubuntu, then you'd pick AMD there, and if not, you'd pick i386. Or rather, yeah, i386, that's right. And then you would be brought to this page here where you'd see this like FTP download, and the one that you would want is the mini ISO. And what this will do is it will download a tiny network installer, which is about 30 or 40 megabytes, and you would burn that onto your CD, or you could just put it on a USB stick and have it in your pocket if you wanted to, I guess. I don't know. However you want to do this, you could do it. And then when you boot this up, the system will go out to the internet and it will download everything it needs to install. And this makes it really cool to do this on a bunch of machines if you want to, or whatever. There's all kinds of reasons why you would want to use this little installer. Now, the only catch here is that your system that you're installing to will have to be wired to the network. You're not going to have any wireless drivers when you first do this. So you would have to have a wired connection, number one, and number two, you'd have to have a pretty fast and pretty stable internet connection to do it, because you're going to download the entire distribution, and if you're trying to do this on a slower connection, then it'll take a lot of time. All right. Now that is method 1. I'm going to show you method 2, which is the one I'm going to be doing today. So we're going to back all the way back out, and we're going to go all the way to the front Ubuntu page here. I'm going to go back to download, and I'm going to start out with a server. I'm going to get me an Ubuntu server, and there's only one version available, okay? And that is Ubuntu 14.04.3 LTS, and it is a 64-bit version. We're not going to go to alternative downloads. We're actually going to just download this file here if we wanted to. And then you would take that file, which is about 500 or 600 megabytes, and you can put this one on a DVD as well. So this is a way to get to a machine that only or rather on a CD. So this is a good way to get this installed on a machine that doesn't have a DVD drive and can't use one. So we're going to do this because it's actually a little bit faster, and one of the things is that it gives us the latest kernel, which is like 3.16, whatever Ubuntu is up to right now. Last time I looked, it was 3.16-45 for their server. Okay, so we have our file downloaded. We're going to pretend, and we have it burned to our media. I have it on a DVD, and we're going to install this today in a virtual machine. Like I said, the machine has to have a wired network connection to make this work. So I'm going to go ahead and start up my machine. I've created the machine, and I'm calling it Xubuntu because it is going to be running Xubuntu when we're done. So that's Ubuntu with the XFCE Desktop. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so it's easier for you guys to see. This is the first thing you see. It asks for your language. I'm going to click in here so it'll do it. Asks for your language, English, and we are going to choose to install Ubuntu Server. Give this a chance to get started. This is not a graphical installer. This is a step-by-step text-based installer, and it is a manual install of Ubuntu. This is going to be true on the mini ISO image as well, the one that I showed you earlier. The mini ISO image will give you a version of Ubuntu that is you have to select what desktop or what other software you want to go with it. The server edition doesn't do that. We'll have to do it later, so this is a slightly different way to do it. But if you start out with the mini ISO, you're going, well, where's this and where's that? It's all there. It's just in a different order. Okay, hope that made sense. All right, so we choose our language, choose our country, United States, and click keyboard layout. And English US is fine with me, and this thing's going to go out and get some things together off of the DVD. And we are actually using a real DVD here to do this. It's not an image on the hard drive because I keep a copy of Ubuntu Server around just in case I need it. And this is what I used to do the entire Cinnaboo project that I posted with about a while back. So just wait for this thing to get going here. And when we come up to places where this takes time, a great deal of time, my plan is to go ahead and pause the video. So this isn't going to take too terribly long for you guys to watch. And now this is all just copying files off of the DVD and putting them into memory. It's now detecting the hardware. Got that job done. And it's going to set up the network for our wired connection. Now you do have to have something running a DHCP server in order for this to work, guys, because that's how it goes out to the internet. So if you're doing this behind a router, you shouldn't have any problems. And we're going to give it a different host name. This is the name of the computer, and I'm going to call it Joe Xubuntu-VM. This is where we're going to create our user account. So put my name in. Make sure I type that properly. And to continue, just press the tab key and it goes on to continue. Username Joe is perfectly all right with me. Need to create a password for the user account, so give it a password. That's the first one. It's going to ask me to retype. And I'm just hitting enter afterwards, gang. And it says, this is a weak password. Do you really want to use it? Yes, I really want to use it. It's just a virtual machine, and it doesn't have to be the world's strongest password. Now it's going to set up the time. The way they have these installs work, you really can't just walk away because it'll do a bit of something and, let's see. I'm in America, New York. I will buy that. It kind of goes off and does things for a while, and then it comes back and asks a question, and then it goes off and does some more. So here we go. All right. Now, we have some choices to make here. This is where we are going to set up our disk partitions. And if we click on guided, use the entire disk, then it will do what it does in the Ubiquity installer that we're used to in the graphical environment. And it'll just put one partition on the disk plus a swap, and that's it, right? But we don't want to do that because we're going to do a custom install. And we don't want to set up an LVM. We're just going to do a custom setup. We'll go down to manual. All right, we're doing guided partitioning. And obviously there's nothing on the system. So this is the one that we want to partition. I'm going to create a new partition table. This is a blank drive since it's a virtual drive, so there's no partition table anyway. All right, so here we go. I'm going to click on this free space. We're going to create a new partition. And we're going to give it size. Now the full size of our partition is 44 gigabytes, but we're not going to give it that much. This is going to be our home partition, so we're going to make it 15 gigabytes. And yes, you can just type the value in the way I did. Once you have it typed in, I moved the mouse, gang, that's why the screen went kerflooey, sorry about that. And once you have that typed in, go. It will be a primary partition. It'll be at the beginning of the space. All right, now you see we have our partition created, and it's asking us what we want to do. The mount point is going to be that, and we're going to do the ext4 file system, which is fine. Mount point is going to be the slash, because this is where our system goes. The rest of this we don't need to mess with, except for the bootable flag. We need that to be on. All right, we're good. So what we're going to do here, we have it set up. No label. We're going to go back. I'm going to click again on our free space. We're going to create a new partition. And this is going to be our swap partition. So we're going to make this, for this machine, 3 gigabytes. It'll be primary. It'll be at the beginning of the space. And we're going to not choose the ext4 file system. This is going to be swap area. It's not a bootable disk, so we're good to go. We're done. So use the tab key to go back. And finally, we have one more partition to set up. Create a new partition. It's going to be the rest of the disk, so just click continue. It's going to be a primary partition. Yet again, we're only doing 3 partitions on this disk, and we will never add another partition, so there's no reason to do it logically. And it already is suggesting that we make it home, and we do ext4, and it's good to go. So go back. And there are all of our partitions. They are ready to go. We are finished partitioning. All done. Now it gives me the list and says, is this okay? Well, it certainly looks good to me. Write the changes to the disk. Yes, and this does ask a lot of times just to make sure, because if you were doing an install where you were trying to retain a partition, it just wants to make sure that it's not blowing out the one that, you know, that has your stuff on it. So take that nice and slow. And like if you choose guided partitioning and just erase and install, it's going to do it automatically. And for a virtual machine, that actually would be fine. I just wanted to show you that process. So we're copying data from the disk, and it's going to start the installation process. And as soon as it gets into the slower part of this, I'm going to pause the video and we'll come back when we get to some sort of output that we need to deal with on the screen. So now we're going into the main install, but first it wants to ask me if I'd like to use a proxy on my internet connection. And I don't want to use a proxy, so we're going to leave that blank. So tab to continue. And at this point, it's going to go out to the internet and it's going to download some files and it's going to do the install. Okay, we crunched along there for about 5 minutes and now we are back. And at this point, we have to choose our updates. We're going to choose no automatic updates. This will make sure that the update manager in our desktop has control of this, guys. So choose no updates. At this point, we're going to be offered a place where we can install some server type software on the machine. And we're not going to install anything on the machine, so just tab and continue. And it is going to continue installing software. We're at 16% complete. We're just about done now. The system is asking us where we will install the boot grub loader. And we want to do that, so we're going to go ahead and say yes. Installing grub is the last thing that it does. And it shouldn't take too long. Alright, we are done. Installation is complete. And we continue to reboot the machine. We'll be booting from the hard drive this time. So we've got our fresh new Ubuntu Server installation we're going to be looking at here. And it booted to the DVD. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. That's just VirtualBox. The server doesn't seem to give us the flag that tells us to eject the DVD. So that's done. So let's start again. This time we'll do it off the hard drive for sure, because there's no DVD in the machine. So here we go. There's our grub menu. So it did work. We did get grub installed. And this is what Ubuntu Server looks like when it boots up. And there we go. We have a login. To log into Ubuntu Server, put your username in that we created at install and your password. That's it. We're there. And it'll give you a bunch of information on the screen when you first log in. I'm going to go ahead and clear all that out so this is easy to see. Let's make sure that we have internet. I'm going to ping yahoo.com. Yes, we do have internet. It's working. I'm not going to do all the pings. So the first thing that we need to do now that we have it installed is update the system. I'm going to skip that. The command to do that, of course, would be sudo. Well, I'll just go ahead and run that part of it. Sudo apt update. And it's going to ask for your password. And it's going to go out and look at all of the connected mirrors and repositories and see if there are updates available, which I know there are. And if we were going to actually do this, then of course the command would be sudo apt dist upgrade. If I turn this loose, it would go out and it would start updating, but I'm not going to do that now because we're doing a video. But I highly recommend that you go ahead and update the system at this point before we move on to the next step. What we have here, ladies and gentlemen, is a completely, totally devoid installation of Ubuntu. There are no graphics here. There are no programs installed. It is a base system. So you get the base maintenance tools, and that's it. So we're going to have to go out and get the software for whatever spin of Ubuntu we want. Fortunately, we don't have to know exactly what packages to get. We only have to know how to get one to do this. So I'm going to do sudo apt install, and the name of the package is tasksel. All right, make sure I type that correctly. And it goes out, and well, it's already on the machine. I guess it comes with the Ubuntu server. That's beautiful. If you were doing a network install, then tasksel would automatically be installed as well. I didn't think it was on server. So if you were doing, like I said, the network, tasksel is already there, and during the installation process, you're going to get what I'm going to show you. On server, you do not, and I thought you had to install it. Awesome sauce. Okay, so let's go ahead and just run the program. I think you can do it without. Yep, here we go. All right, this is where we get to choose all of our Ubuntu software. And I have to do that with super user privileges. There we go. All right, now we can do it. Okay, so what we're going to do is choose the software that we need. We don't need a DNS server. We don't need a LAMP server. We don't need a mail server. You might want a print server. It might be something you'd like to have. And then we're going to go down here, and we're going to choose our desktop environment. Now look at this that you have to choose from. Let me get out of here and zoom in even a little bit more, make it a little bit easier for you the gang to see. Okay, this is where all the action is. So look at this. We can choose Ubuntu GNOME, the regular Ubuntu desktop, Ubuntu USB if you want to create a USB stick. There's the Xubuntu desktop. That's the one that we want for this video because I'm creating a Xubuntu. We can create live CDs and DVDs. And if you have a later version than 14.04, you can also choose Ubuntu Mate, which is not on this list, but as of 14.10 it is. So if you're wondering, well, if I wanted to try Ubuntu Mate, you'd have to get a later version. There is an Ubuntu Mate 14.04, but it's not considered an official spin. So after you've chosen your desktop environment, and by the way, if you just want regular Ubuntu, then you just want Ubuntu desktop, okay? And you can do Lubuntu, any one of these. Once you choose what you want, tab to click OK. Okay, after a bit of messing around there, I got it working, and it is resizing the window properly and everything. It turns out that there was a setting in VirtualBox that I needed to click, and not quite used to version 5 yet. That's what the deal is. So anyway, there you go. That's how you do it. It's up, it's running, it's installing the restricted extra packages, and I'm going to go and play with my new copy of Xubuntu. Thanks for watching, gang. Appreciate it.